a lateral moving kind of squatty lungy thingy. I think these are often referred to as a Cossack squat. And it's going to have us moving our pelvis side to side. So we're going to just start off by just moving that pelvis side to side. And I'm doing this right now, keeping my knees fairly straight. They're not locked, but they're straight. My weight's centered into the feet, so I'm not on the front of the feet or back into the heels. I'm somewhere in between. And I'm literally just kind of pushing my pelvis to the right and to the left, and just getting that pelvis moving over top of these legs, okay? So we're gonna start to sit into this as we slide the pelvis side to side, but we're gonna initiate this from the foot. So I'm gonna push my pelvis to the right, and I'm gonna do that by pushing with my left foot. So zero in on your left foot. Feel that inside edge or that whole foot pushing into the ground. Notice my feet are pointing straight ahead. And I'm gonna start to push this foot into the floor as if I'm trying to drive this part of the floor that way. The floor is not gonna go anywhere though, so let that sense of pushing into the floor start to push you away from that point, right? The floor doesn't move, you're gonna move. So push from this foot and let yourself start to sit into this hip and knee, coming into almost a little squatty motion. As you sit into this guy, we want to keep this leg extended. So if we're really tight in the inner thighs, just go a little narrower to start so that we're not moving into quite as big of a relative stretch. Alternatively, if you've got a good amount of range of motion, you can go really wide with these legs. We can push and get into these nice, deep, kind of almost speed skater positions. So we're initiating, I'm pushing from this left foot, and I'm gonna drive my pelvis onto this right leg, sitting into that hip and knee. So you can see it's a bit of a squatty position. My spine is long, and my center of gravity ends up over this leg. So if I hung a plumb line from my nose, it's gonna land somewhere in front of these toes. If I hung another one from this hip, it's gonna land somewhere behind the heel. When I'm ready to come out of that, I'm gonna push into this leg and I'm gonna drive myself to the other side. So I'm gonna focus on this right foot, pushing this point in the floor, pushing, 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 and pushing myself over onto the left. Now, we can really embrace this kind of speed skater motion. As I push, I can start to get my upper body to help rotate me into this working leg. So as I get onto this right side, I'm kind of reaching this left arm forward, and I can reach it forward or I can reach that elbow forward, and this other arm can kind of pull back like this. So it can start to look a little bit like you're imagining yourself as a speed skater, and these arms reaching and rotating helps to turn the rib cage and helps to improve that positioning over that leg. So we end up stacking right over top of the leg. So key points here, I want to keep the big toes down. I find it really helpful to initiate from the feet. We're focusing on pushing that one foot into the floor like I'm driving the floor away, but this foot that's receiving me, I want to keep that big toe down. I don't want to let that movement of my pelvis push that foot or that leg out to the side and roll off that foot. I also want to make sure my hips are moving kind of just across from side to side, and they're not swaying side to side. So the direction that my hips, the back of my hips are pointing, constantly stays pointing straight back behind me. And in my experience, pushing and initiating this movement from the foot really helps to get the pelvis and the hips into a better position. But you could also take your hands to the hips, and you want to feel as I come into this left side, as I sit into this left hip and knee, I'm going to make sure this left hip is still pointing back behind me. I don't want to feel like that hip is shooting out to the side and pointing to the side. Even though I'm moving to the left, I actually want my hip to kind of slide back. And this is where I find the feet really help to get the pelvis and the hips into a good position. So if all else fails, think about pushing from your feet and driving those feet into the floor as if you're trying to push the floor away. And then just double check to see if the hips are doing something wonky. All right, the other thing that we might be able to notice is if my hip's doing something wonky, I might notice this hip is actually kind of creeping up to my ear, and it's kind of, instead of staying in line with that imaginary ski underneath his foot. It's starting to kind of creep forward or creep out to the side. Okay, so don't forget to breathe. A lovely little sequence once you get clear on the position is you can exhale, push yourself onto one side, hold for an inhale, and then exhale, push to the other side. So get those arms swinging, get your breath flowing, and integrate a little movement and breathing and really pushing through the floor, hips moving in this nice lateral motion.